Kevin Lee announced last night on Twitter that he is coming out of retirement and will fight again. And I think this could be a really bad idea. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. My name is James Lynch. Shout out to MMA Fighting for putting this cool graphic together with Lee's tweets. But Lee's saying, I'm coming out of retirement. I'll fight MMA again. I don't know when, where, or who yet. But I'm dropping weight and getting into shape now. I'm going to be in the best shape of my life. That's my focus right now. It's been 6 months since I retired and I miss being around the sport. And look, I like Kevin Lee. I've always liked Kevin Lee. I've liked his fight style. I like the way he's promoted himself. I know he gets a lot of unnecessary hate from fans because he's tried to promote himself and some of the things that he said. But I'll be rooting for Kevin in this situation. But I really don't think this is a good idea. If you read some of the quotes that Kevin had prior to him retiring, let's go take a look at this. So first and foremost, Kevin it says that he is retiring. This is back in July. Brett Okamoto with the story there. Kevin Lee saying here, to make a long story short, I've decided to retire from MMA and the UFC. Lee said in an Instagram post, it's been 12 long years of me being the best fighter that I can be, and a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication for me to be the best fighter in the world. When I look back on it, I had a hell of a career. And part of the reason he retired was so many knee issues, right? He had knee surgery, I think on both knees, if I'm not mistaken. Here's an article that was shortly after Lee's retirement here on MMA Fighting. Kevin Lee saying, my knees have just been giving me hell for 3 years now. The hardest thing before was the weight cutting, right? Me going up to 170 kind of alleviated all that, but I never had to deal with this type of injury before. Here's the key thing. I don't move the same. I'm not moving at the same speed I was before. I had to take it easy the whole camp to try it, turn it on during the fight. And honestly, and the fight he's talking about is the Renat fight, which he got finished very quickly. I just wasn't ready for that speed. My body is just not, my knees are not repaired. I got a torn ACL. I've had it since the Diego Sanchez fight. I decided to not get surgery after the Diego Sanchez fight and just strengthen and fight off it. But it's pretty obvious and clear I need to have surgery on it. If I'm really being honest, it's something I've thought about since I fought Charles Oliveira. Even Firas Wahabi will tell you when you get done with the fight and you walk into the back, sometimes you have moments like, what the F did I just do? What are we doing here? This is crazy, right? After that fight, I had a different fight of feeling to it. Part of me wants to post the post-fight interview I did for that fight and kind of told them I wanted to take a few years off. And honestly, I probably should have retired right then and there, but it was just that this is what I've been doing for so long, and this is where I put all my heart and soul into it, kind of doubled down and made sure that's what I was going to do. So I don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, guys, I don't have it on me right now, but did he end up getting the surgery? I guess the thing that's concerning here is that, we're talking about your knees, right? Like, it's not something that, is it's not like an arm injury or something. Like, you need your knees to be mobile, and Kevin Lee being primarily a wrestler, that's sort of what he's known for. You need to have good knees, and it's not like Kevin Lee is like super young here. He's 31 years old, but if you look at fight years, I mean, this is a guy who's been competing in MMA since way back in 2011. So he's been in, and he's fought the who's who. He's again, he has a very decorated resume, and this is one of the reasons I get annoyed with fans kind of crapping on Kevin Lee. But I think you need both knees working ideally. Now, I'd like to ask someone in the comments here, let me know, is there fighters that have come back from major knee surgery and still perform very well? There's not a lot that come to mind. And you hear a lot about this in football, where once you have that knee surgery, you're never really the same. So that's the thing I wonder. Obviously not a doctor here, guys, but I do think it's an area for concern here. If the reason he retired is due to injuries, and now 6 months later, his knees are completely great. I don't hear him mention anything about his knees here. So that's where things get a bit concerning. Is the knee healed? Are the knees better? Because it was both knees that I know he had issues with in the past. He says my knees here, right? Just to clarify. So that's the first thing. Are his knees good? Now, let's say his knees are good. He's had surgery. He's feeling better. You got to look at realistically, what is the UFC going to do with Kevin Lee? So let's get that out of the way. Let's say his knees are good, right? His knees are fine. He's still got to make 155. And if you look at Kevin Lee's career, I think Wikipedia would have a better look at this. Actually, we can even go here. If you look at all the times he's missed weight, right? He missed weight against Charles Oliveira, missed weight against Edson Barbosa. He's had weight issues in the past, and it's very hard for him to get down to 155. So that's the other hurdle he's got to overcome too, right? He's got to actually make 155. I always thought Kevin Lee was better at lightweight. I did. I thought I thought he was too small for 170, and that's when he was with Eagle FC and fighting at 165. I thought that was a great division for him. He's kind of an in-betweener, right? So that's the area of concern. And then the third thing that we got to look at is, what is the UFC going to do with them? When they signed Kevin Lee back to the UFC, they basically gave him a very, very tough, not really big upside fight here in Renat. And I think everyone knew going in that Renat was going to beat him. In fact, what were the odds on that fight? Yeah, look, he was minus 200, but realistically, he should have been like minus 800. He finished Lee very quickly. The fight lasted how long? 55 seconds. And again, it's because part of it is because that Lee is not 100% when he's fighting. So that's the other thing. I would imagine if Kevin Lee's coming back, even if he fights at 155, they're going to give him up and comers and use those guys to build him up, because I think even the UFC knows that Kevin Lee is not someone that's probably going to go back and make a run at the title or anything like that. So what do you do with veterans like this? You put them against up and comers. We've seen this time and time again. It's like what they did with Tony and Paddy Pimblett, right? They're going to continue to sort of build this up. So that's where I think this is not a very good idea, because you got three major hurdles here that you got to overcome. You got to overcome the fact that your knees aren't 100%. You got to overcome the fact that you got to make 155. And then you got to go overcome the fact that the UFC is not going to be generous in their matchmaking. They're just not. The UFC doesn't seem like they're going to reinvest in Kevin Lee and give him like a contender series winner and try and build him back up. I don't think the UFC is going to do that. So that's the three major areas of concern I see for Kevin Lee here. Saying all that, I hope it works out. Again, I would love to see this comeback story. We've seen a number of fighters overcome adversity and go on to greatness. Charles Oliveira being one of them. I remember when Charles Oliveira was written off as some, terrible bust prospect, and he went on to win a UFC title. So it would be great to see Lee do this. I really hope, it all comes to fruition and everything's good, but I just think he has a lot to overcome here. And I think, again, even if everything goes well, like I said, with the cut to 155 and everything else, he's still going to get tough matchmaking from the UFC, and I just don't know what he's going to be able to do. And I just think that's it's going to be extremely difficult for him to progress and get to where he wants to get to as well. I guess one of the saving graces for Kevin Lee as well is that he's down in Florida. He's training at Killcliff. I think that's a good room for him. He'll definitely get pushed by some of the guys down there. You've got, obviously, at 170, you've got a lot of really good talent there. You've got, Gilbert Burns, Vicente Luque, Usman's in and out. You got Shavkat. Like, there's just a lot of good guys that can push him. And then the last thing we should mention, let's say, again, all goes well and he makes 155. Let's look at this division right now. It's one of the deepest divisions in the UFC right now. And you got Islam at the very top, right? I mean, look at this. Oliveira, Gaethje, Poirier, Saryukin, Chandler, Gamrot, Dariush, Fiziev, Turner, Hooker, Dos Anjos, St. Denis, Moicano, Bobby Green, and Drew Dober. Like, maybe Drew Dober and Bobby Green right now, even Moicano, I guess at the time of recording this, we'll see how he looks on Saturday. But like, Benoit St. Denis against Kevin Lee right now, how do you think that goes? I mean, I don't think it goes very well for Kevin. So that's all I'm saying. Like, I think this is an extremely tough thing for him to do. I'll be rooting for him, but I got to, not that I'm trying to be biased here, but it would be a good story if he could come back and do it. But those are kind of the angles I'm looking at. And the last thing I'll mention on this, and then we'll wrap things up here on this video. Let's hope he's not coming back because he's hurting for money. I mean, we oftentimes see fighters, do fights like this. I mean, this is a much different situation. He would be coming back to the UFC. I believe he's still under contract. It's not like, Melvin Gillard. Go Google him if you guys don't know who Melvin Gillard is. Most of you should if you're hardcore fans. But like, Melvin Gillard was clearly fighting for money, just to pay his bills. You hope that's not the case here with Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee seems like a smart guy to me. I think there's lots of things he could do outside the cage. So let's hope it's not a money reason why he's coming back. Hopefully we'll hear from Kevin soon and elaborate a little bit more on these tweets. But for right now, it appears that Kevin Lee is coming out of retirement. And like I said, he's got a number of big hurdles to overcome to get back. And again, we don't even have a timeline of when he could come back or whatever, but apparently he is attempting this right now. So I don't know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you think of all this? Do you think Kevin Lee will succeed? Does anyone have any more insight into Kevin Lee's knee injuries? Again, I'm just kind of going off what I've seen briefly on the internet, but it doesn't sound very good as far as what he's had to deal with over the last couple of years with his knee injuries. Again, he's not that old. He's 31, but in fight years, he's certainly taken a lot of damage. How do you think he'll do? What do you want to see happen with Kevin Lee? Do you want to see him make this comeback, or do you think it's better if he just stays retired? Let me know your comments in the YouTube comments of this video. I'd appreciate that. Also, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. You can follow me on all social platforms and on YouTube at Lynch on Sports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.